Welcome. I'm Kirsty Davis, CEO of Elegance Group. Thank you all so much for coming today. Before we get started, first of all, forgive me. I may repeat myself a little over the next few minutes. I just want to give everyone time to log in, get settled, before we really get into the main event of this webinar. So if you need to grab a coffee, just nip to the bathroom, just take a breath, reset, then go ahead and do that. You still have some time. So today's event is the second in our strategic software series. Hi Brett, I see you on the chat there. And if you joined us 2 weeks ago, you would have heard from Rick Earl, who talked to us about how to rationalize and roadmap your tooling with purpose. And that now leads into today. I will be talking with Erin Burke. I'll introduce her in a moment. She is Head of Procurement at Pepperstone. And leading procurement strategy in a global fintech environment means that Erin is at the center of how organizations are thinking about tooling choices, vendor management, and getting real value in 2025. So I'm just going to repeat myself again here. There's just a couple more minutes before we get started. So everyone just get settled and relaxed. I'm hoping that today will be an interactive session, so don't be shy. I'll be asking Erin a number of pre-approved questions. But I do encourage you to use the Q&A function. You can find that at the bottom of the screen. There's a speech bubble, square speech bubble with a question mark. If you just click that, that'll open the Q&A for you. And I'm also going to make things confusing by using the chat function as well. I can see there's a few people already in there. So the chat will also be at the bottom, and that's the 2 speech bubbles with the dots in. If you open that, and I'm going to test your abilities now. So open your chat, and if you could work anywhere today, if you could work from anywhere today, where would that be? Let's see where people would prefer to be working today. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to share my screen. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Elegance Group was founded in 2020 by Brett Selliers. Myself and Rick Earl are also co-founders. And Elegance Group is an Atlassian-only solution provider. So you're really talking to the Atlassian experts when you engage with us. We operate in New Zealand, Australia, and Southeast Asia. And we help untangle tool sprawl and help you get more out of the Atlassian tools that you already have, or perhaps don't even know that are there in the company somewhere. Okay, so where would people rather be working? Sorry, I've just got things all over my screen if you see me looking in different places. Bali, Fiji, some very exotic locations there. Botswana, interesting. Stu, I like this one, the camper van on the beach. Probably already working from there, are you, Stu? I'm glad you're enjoying your current desk, Robbie. I have to say, one of my colleagues actually works from the OBC, the boating club over on Tamaki Drive, and I sometimes go join him for the day, and that's quite a nice place to work from because it's quite quiet and you're looking over the sea and over to Rangitoto. Awesome. So don't forget the chat will be open. So if you want to make any comments or add any reactions, use the chat. If you have any questions for Erin as we go, please use the Q&A. And I might call on some of those questions during the session. And if not, then we'll answer those at the end. So without further ado, I'm really pleased to welcome Erin Burke, Head of Procurement at Pepperstone. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And are you joining from Melbourne today?
I am chilly Melbourne, but we keep our office at a blazing inferno, so it's always fun going into that.
Nice. It's a little cool in this office today. I wish it was a bit warmer. So before I jump into all procurement questions, I have another one for you just to kick off.
Yes.
So I understand that you actually were born in New Zealand, in Bay of Plenty.
Yes.
And now living in Melbourne. So really the real question is, are you still an All Blacks supporter or have you transitioned to Wallabies?
I am forever an All Blacks supporter. I unfortunately am about to become an Australian citizen in about a month, and that is one of the first questions people ask. Will you support the Wallabies? Never.
Never.
Absolutely not. I remember
Okay.
George Regan and what he did, and I won't be forgiving.
I can relate. I've been in New Zealand 12 years, coming from the UK and living in England. My dad's from Wales, so I just feel like I'm collecting rugby teams at this point. Awesome. So you've spent over a decade in procurement and financial industries. So what do people, when people hear the word procurement, what do you feel they actually think you do?
Most people think I just buy stuff, and that I get in the way, that I'm there to make them follow a process that they don't need because they just need to get their job done and there's no point, and why do they have to do this? Often people don't understand what procurement is or even the fact that it's a full life cycle. So when I
Mhm.
reference procurement, I'm talking about the plan, buy, implement, manage, exit. It's that full cycle that goes round and round. And most people just really only think about the purchase element of it and not all the other steps that go into making it a successful investment.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. I probably hold my hand up and say I've been guilty of having those same thoughts earlier in my career.
People do hate to see me coming.
Yes, the roadblock in the way, but it's absolutely not it. So, what does the day look like? What
Yeah.
does the role look like day to day in the tech world?
I think it really varies. It depends on the company you work for. We are a fintech company, so we move at 1,000 miles an hour. So on any given day, I could be negotiating a contract for a service we're getting just in Melbourne or one of our global services. I could be dealing with regulators to make sure that we are managing our suppliers to the levels that regulators require us to. I could be looking at RFXs, spending a lot of time with my executive team talking about what are we doing in the next 6, 12, 24 months to make sure we're set up. And a lot of analysis on current state, and then working really closely with our finance team around spend profiles and helping them appropriately forecast, and helping my particularly technical business users understand the language of business and how they need to start thinking about things slightly different than how they traditionally have.
Awesome. So, definitely more than just signing a
Yeah.
box at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of cross teamwork. It's a lot
Yeah.
of, I have to know a little bit about everything and a little bit of access to every team in the company, and all my suppliers as well. I have to know what's going on in the market and what's the emerging trends and what's breaking and what's winning and who are my partners that I could then engage with that on. So it's no 2 days are really the same. You get a lot
Yeah.
of consistency in terms of when you do have a contract, there's a process that you follow. The negotiations have a natural rhythm to them, but you have to be so current on everything you're working on because particularly in this industry, in this part of finance, the world can shift very, very fast. Within a day, my entire business case could have changed direction and I need to
Mm,
pivot.
absolutely. Yeah. I imagine that you actually, it'd be better to be involved earlier than later in that process as well, so that you can kind of help shape part of that.
It's very much something I advocate to all technology people, but particularly technology leaders and leaders in general. Engage your procurement teams early. Procurement should be a strategic partner and enabling function, not just a process that you follow. We're not a compliance activity. And the earlier you engage us, the earlier I can point out, well, actually, we've got 6 of those. Why don't we combine them and get one? Or, hey, that's technology that we would be the first people using. Do you want to take that risk? This is what the market looks like. These are the partners I recommend we work with. This is a faster way that we could do that. Have we thought about turning this on once you've purchased whatever it might be? Have you thought about making sure people want to use it and can use it and it works with our other tooling? It's a very different dynamic, whereas particularly for technology solutions, people are really focused on the functionality and the
Hmm.
toy that they want to play with, and those bigger things around the actual optimization and the business running of it gets a little lost in the noise.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. It would be a pretty hard job to keep abreast of everything so that when something comes across your desk, you can have full visibility and guidance for that. Um, it kind of touches on something that Rick brought up as well in the last webinar around tool sprawl, and the challenges that keep coming up. Is what we're trying to touch on here in our strategic software series, and how tool sprawl creates that that there's too many tools, there's overlapping features, and a lot of wasted spend. From where you sit, like how big of a problem is that, and what's driving it?
I think it's one of the biggest problems that people ignore, or people don't realize is one of the biggest problems. It's very easy to look at your big strategic partners and put all your energy into that and think, well, if something goes wrong with those partners, my business can't run. And that makes sense. You can't not have that focus and have that investment. But the tool sprawl tends to be your tail end of spend and services. And that actually ends up adding up to quite a lot of money from an investment perspective. It adds a lot of complexity to your environments from a support and keeping things current, particularly given cybersecurity requirements. And it takes a lot of efficiencies out of your teams, because if I'm using tool A and then you're using tool B and someone else is using tool C, and we're just constantly translating it through those different tools because they're almost the same but not identical, how much wasted time do you have? In your team, where they could be doing valuable work rather than reformatting documents or code or whatever it might be. That it's a boring part of the job and no one wants to do it because they look at the dollars and think, oh, well, that's only $10,000 a year. Why does that matter? It matters because you've got 100 of them, and that adds up to quite a bit of money. It matters because, you know, if you've got 6 things that do vaguely the same thing in a team of 20, what is your quantum of hours of productive work that you're losing whilst people are going between those trying to figure out what tool should I use for this and how do I integrate it with that? Because it's just, it's not something you can ignore. It's something everyone wants to ignore, but it's not something I would recommend people ignoring. It's actually easy wins. It's a lot easier than fixing some strategic challenges.
Absolutely. And it's all about the bigger picture, right? So I can imagine, and probably have experienced this myself actually, where you can be isolated in your little area of the business and you're kind of coming up with a solution, which is what starts adding to that tool sprawl. So in your role in procurement, how do you work with business units and leaders who are putting forward business cases to actually make them more aware of what's around already?
So I say to anyone coming into procurement, relationships is your most important tool, skill set, leverage that you've got. You need to be building relationships, not just with your suppliers, but everyone internally, so that I've sort of trained my guys, when they have an idea, they come to me and they say, do we already have this? Or do we have something
Nice.
that I can use for this? Or I'm thinking about buying this. Can we have a 15-minute chat before I go down the pathway? So then I'm catching it early to say, actually, I do have something quite similar. Can you investigate if that will work with you? Even if that means I have to buy a step up to get it to work for you, I'd rather do that than a whole new tool. Or equally, because I sit so close to the finance team, this is a great idea. You need to put it into a business case because there's financial implications. We have to go through a process. It's just catching it a lot earlier and really helping people see, I might sometimes say no, but it's no but. And so they've gotten into the habit of saying, I'm going to help them get where they need to go, and understanding that, yes, this feels like a lot of time and effort right now, but it means that once the purchase is complete and they want to start enabling it, it goes so much faster. And for a lot of people and a lot of companies, what they see happen is really quick to contract, and then actually getting something turned on, getting it enabled, getting the value out of it takes months, if not years, and then you never fully achieve that because they didn't put the effort in the beginning to scope it properly and to make sure that everyone from the business to the tech team to the supplier is all on the same page around expectations and what does good look like when we move through this journey.
So it really kind of sounds like actually what you're calling out is almost like a mind shift across an entire organization, and it's elevating procurement to be what you called out earlier, right? The strategic enabler to join those dots together and coach people into how to approach procurement and purchases and choices around vendors and tooling.
And coach the business on how to do procurement. Most companies are not going to have massive procurement teams to do everything for the business. So you're always going to have your business users doing a lot of this work. Help them understand what needs to be done, how it can be done in language that they understand. You know, obviously I've got a heavy background in tech, and I am constantly pulling my hair out of my teams, being like, you have to speak in a way everyone can understand what you're saying. But that goes for procurement as well. We've got our own acronyms, we've got our own language. You have to make it consumable because that's where the value starts coming in. People want to talk to you if you're seen as helpful. People want to follow the process if it makes sense in their brains for how it works, and they can see the value as well.
That really brings me kind of to one of the next questions, actually, around in terms of what goes wrong most of the time and what people don't think about. So if you had 3 actionable procurement pointers for 2025, what would they be?
What is your why? And you have to be really clear about what your why is and what your outcome is going to look like, because it's, a lot of, and I do fall back to technology people because that is my main background. A lot of tech people are natural learners, right? And so they've got this curiosity to try new technologies, particularly a company like Pepperstone, where we are early adopters of a lot of tech. And you can tell when they want to play with a new toy versus this is actually driven by business need. So what is your why? What is the benefit? How are we going to enable it and measure that ROI and the success and everything like that would be the first one. The second one would be collaborate early, with procurement, with security, if you need architecture, if you are doing something that's got change management or it impacts a specific team like marketing, make sure you're working with those teams early and often to make sure requirements appropriately are gathered and everyone's on the same page about what to expect and what they need to contribute to make it successful. And then the third would be to actively manage your portfolio. Coming out of New Zealand government, the needle was starting to move, and I believe it's moved quite considerably now, but you still see it in a lot of companies. People sign contracts and put them in a drawer, never to be thought of again until something goes wrong. Don't do that. Suppliers are very competitive in this day and age because of the economic conditions that we're operating in. They want to give you value adds. They want to bring in their technical experts to talk to your technical experts, and they all get to, have a learning experience together. A lot of suppliers are starting to understand that our success is their success, and it has to be a joint partnering moving forward to get that. And so you do that by actively managing those portfolios. You share your roadmaps, you share your goals, you give them an opportunity to say, well, actually, this is coming through and might help. Can we talk about it more? But not actively engaging in those suppliers that really matter means you're leaving value on the table, and all that's going to happen is something's going to blow up, and you're not going to have the relationship leverage to them want to go above and beyond to help solve your problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Relationships definitely where everything seems to stem from, always.
I can't replace me.
Absolutely. And you touched there as well on the economic climate. I think it's like the pivotal conversation point in most meeting rooms and all decisions that are being made across organizations at the moment. There's a lot of instability, uncertainty. So from a procurement point of view, how do you feel like procurement's adapting to all these pressures like budget cuts, price increases, but also trying to keep a mind on that strategic partnership side of things?
So there was a real push probably 2020 at the start of COVID when everyone really started panicking. To cost out. So it was going to your suppliers, I need at least a 20% discount. Those days I think are very much over. You might still have a few legacy contracts that you can do that in, but technology partners in particular, they're running lean. They are letting people go themselves, which it's a tough environment for all those people too. So now it's more about managing the relationship to maximize value from the suppliers. It's managing your negotiations to make sure that you're getting your financial and non-financial benefits when you're signing a contract. And what I mean by non-financial is I've recently negotiated a deal where I got 100 hours of their most senior architect on a very specialist tool set for us to use as and when we needed. That in of itself, whilst I am not paying for that, that equates to a significant investment from them in the relationship. It's rationalization, so removing duplication of tools. It's looking at licensing to say, okay, well, this person hasn't used any of these licenses in 6 months and they're specialist licenses as opposed to our core ones. Do they still need that? Should we be having a conversation with them and their manager and start removing them so we can reduce cost there? And then when new things are coming in, it's those hard questions of, do we need this? Do we need to be making this investment? And if we are going to make this investment, what does that give to us in return? Is it a revenue bump? Is it a security change? Is it something to meet a regulatory requirement? Whatever it is, but what does that link to in terms of our business needs and goals, so that there's a real alignment from spend to outcome to benefit?
Mm-hmm. So really, it's honestly just about challenging the status quo all the time, and not from the angle of we just need to cut cuts all the time, but actually, is this still suiting us? Is this still the right thing for us?
And
Yeah.
if I think, back to the infancy of my career, the amount of fat IT budgets used to carry because people weren't asking those questions, and I shudder to think about it. That's not the reality anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of companies are already running these teams pretty lean, and quite aggressively lean as well, because they've been seeing the writing on the wall. And now it's about, well, how do I get more without paying more?
Mm-hmm. Same as the how do I get more for less internally as well. Excuse me. And so, kind of just to take that a little bit further, what are the things from your perspective then that you feel suppliers can be doing in helping customers and procurement from organizations get the outcomes they need?
I think suppliers, and you do get really good ones, and I have seen some changes in the market, they need to move past their sales approach and start approaching it like partners. So you see customers have moved towards a very partnering model with our suppliers. Some suppliers haven't quite made that mind shift change. And I completely understand. We're all, well, not all, a lot of us are for-profit businesses. You've got shareholders, you've got responsibilities, everyone is not working for free. But when you've got the suppliers who are popping up at the end of their sales quarter of, oh, you should buy this and I'll give you a 50% discount because it's end of quarter. Okay, well, this is the first I've heard about it. So you're now putting me in a position where I have to try and rush something through. You're not giving me an opportunity to fully evaluate, does this make sense for us? You haven't even started signaling in advance the value of this to us. Whereas if we are sharing our roadmap and our goals and our challenges and opportunities, you in turn should be saying, oh, okay, well, here's what we can help with you today. And this is what I know is coming through here. Also saying no sometimes. Some of my most trusted suppliers have told me no many times over the years because that's not what they do. It's not in their wheelhouse and they know someone else can do it better. So it builds that trust, it builds that relationship, but it's coming with that joint partnering spirit as opposed to I've got a sales quota I need to meet. And that is often when you get those very deep, very beneficial relationships where you think, well, this is the company that has an understanding of my business, and this is the company that knows what I'm doing, and their bid responses show it because they've taken the time to learn about you and how you operate and what you need and what you want, that they can then tailor their response far better than someone who just turns up with something out of the box, shiny, new, you should all have it.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say that what you see as partnership then is you kind of call it that mutual back and forth, but it's almost, you're kind of almost testing your suppliers to see how far along they are in that partnership.
It definitely is. And I think it's important to recognize that whilst I have great relationships with my suppliers, if they may mess up, there is consequences to that. The reason why I write my contracts the way I do, so that if there are issues or are pain points, we've got a very clear process and it takes the emotion out of it, but there's still consequences for that. I am paying for a service and I expect that to be delivered to the agreed standard. In terms of the testing of them, you do have to, for a new supplier where you don't have that history, it's what are your core values as a company? How do you guys operate? Does that work with your needs? Are you, one of these suppliers that's going to blow up and toss your toys because I pointed out that we've got some challenges that need to be addressed? Or are you the supplier that responds saying, yep, put my hands up, we made some mistakes. Can we talk to you about where it went wrong and how we can do better? That's sort of more the response you want, because equally we make mistakes and I'm very happy to put my hands up and say that was on us, here's what we're doing to mitigate. But it requires that really high level of communication and transparency to have those most beneficial relationships.
Yeah, no, I can understand that and relate to that from being on a supply side. It's a question that we discuss quite often, and what partnership means, because I think it can mean different things to different people. And how.
Yeah, it's hard because people automatically think that means you give away all your negotiating leverage. You still have to hold back certain things in terms of timing, in terms of commercially sensitive information when you're going to go to market, but you can also have then very hard conversations with your supplier, and I'm lucky that I'm out of government, so the rules are a little bit looser for me to say, look, I'm going to market on this. If you want to be competitive, I'm going to need your price to be 20% lower or whatever it might be, to give them the heads up. If that's a partner you've really liked working with, but cost is a really big factor at this point in time, give them that opportunity. The strength of the relationship can be a very motivating factor if you are then also willing to say, I'll do a case study with you, or I'll stand up at one of your conferences, or I'll be a reference site, or any of those things. That is very valuable to particularly emerging suppliers, but even the big players. They want public-facing customers to be able to say, we had a great experience, this is what we got out of it. And that tends to motivate them to get you a good deal as well.
Absolutely. Customer advocacy goes a long way in this day and age. And so for someone who might be on this call today who perhaps works in an organization that doesn't see procurement in the same vein that you're kind of talking about today, or the value of true partnerships, what would be your advice to them in terms of trying to influence things in that direction?
I think it depends on what angle you're coming at it from. If you're coming at it from a business owner, we need to engage with procurement because we don't know what we're getting from our suppliers, and we know we're not getting as much value as we could. That tends to be relatively motivating, particularly to a CFO. I'm leaving value on the table. How can we work with them to get that value? How do we have those conversations? Where you've got more transactional in nature's approaches to relationships with suppliers, it's not a dissimilar conversation, but it's more of a conversation around, well, what is wrong in this relationship that we don't want to talk to them? What is not working for us? What could do better? Because that's often why a relationship is transactional, is that there's been a less than positive experience. Go tell the supplier. Quite honestly, if something's not going, go tell them. Don't be nasty, but go tell them. Give them an opportunity to fix it. If nothing else, very cynically, it then creates a paper trail if you want to terminate for cause. But really, they actually want to fix it. They want to keep the contract. They want to get paid their bills. Give them the opportunity to do the right thing and fix the problem. And that's how, and then it's bringing in procurement, because we speak the language of your business and we speak the language of the supplier's business, and we can help facilitate those conversations and really sort of be, I wouldn't say a middleman because I'm always on the side of my company, but closer to a middleman to sort of smooth the waters and really focus on what is the outcome we're trying to get here. What is the thing that we need to support this company, to support this business unit, to support this person, whatever it might be? And how do we do that? And it creates that sort of shared experience and shared goal to get the buy-in for everyone to want to put the effort to get to that goal.
Awesome. Yeah, so really kind of leading from the inside, but then also trying to leverage your partners to help with that picture.
And I would also encourage people, reach out to your suppliers. My suppliers do not talk to my executive team unless I've agreed to it, but equally, they don't talk to them without a briefing from me first. And so it will be, make sure you cover these topics. That's what they're most interested in. I've been to meetings where big multinationals have turned up with extra people, and I have openly opened the meeting saying, this is not a sales conversation. We're talking about A, B, and C, and if you attempt to sell us anything, I will end the meeting now. Purely because I know that the executive that was on that call, he did not want to be sold anything. So set your suppliers up for success, but hold them to account on that.
I love that. I love the honesty and transparency there, just kind of setting the scene and helping coach your partners. It
makes your life so much easier if people know what's important to you and what you need them talking about. Otherwise, they'll just waffle on with marketing campaigns that you don't need.
Absolutely. And that's such a great viewpoint that you've brought to the table around the value of true partnership, and actually a perfect lead in to our next webinar, where we'll be talking to Steve Baker from Vendor Sage, and we'll be diving into the value of strategic technology partnerships. And that's exactly what you've kind of been leading us to, is procurement really should be all about strategic partnerships, and that's how you get the most out of the technology you've got.
Partnerships, and I would say segmentation. Not all of your suppliers are going to be strategic.
Yes.
Find ones that are, and money is not an indicator of strategic importance. It's about the service, the risk, the benefit. Put a lot of your effort into there, and then put some effort, but not as much, into the rest of them. They still need to be monitored and maintained and all those things, but 70% of your effort and your executive's effort should be into those really strategic and strategic growth partners to really drive the business value for you.
This may be a difficult question, but I'm sorry to put you on the spot with this. Is there kind of like a ratio that you feel is kind of a good, because obviously you wouldn't have all of your suppliers as strategic partners, like how many should be focusing around
Yeah.
strategic partnership?
So I have roughly 4 categories: transactional, category leading, strategic, and strategic growth is how I segment my suppliers. Strategic growth, if I have more than 5 in there, then we need to be looking at that assessment, because it's not weighted correctly, because strategic growth should be such a rarity. Strategic, you kind of double it up to 10, depending, and this is depending on the size of your organization.
Yeah.
Category leading, it tends to be a lot wider, purely because that's suppliers that are really important to an individual business unit or an individual function. So there's a lot more that sit in there. And then you sort of tail off into transactional, where you might have large numbers again, but the scoring, depending on how you've done your scoring, it becomes that long tail that I was talking about earlier. And that's really where you want to target. Well, a transactional partner, I could switch out with anything without any real impact on this business. Do I have ones that are all in the same category, and should I centralize them, and then it becomes a category leading? And yeah, as a rule, it's sort of a double as you go through, but it depends on the size of your company.
Yeah, awesome. That's really insightful. And yeah, similar to how we kind of also look at our clients around the level of partnership and expectations and give and take, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're going to move to the questions now. If anyone on the call has any questions for Erin, now is your opportunity to ask away. There is one from Jessie. If you have any tips, I guess this is just kind of expanding tips for coaching the business through the benefits and how that adds value. Anything else specific that you haven't already touched on?
Coaching on how procurement adds value. Honestly, it's a marketing campaign. It is, and you have to figure out what people are interested in. So I know if I'm going to my CFO, it's here's all this money I've saved you. Great, hit the box. If I'm going to my CTO or CIO, it's here's all the new toys you've got, and here's the ones I've turned off so you don't have legacy tech anymore. The marketing team, let's move faster because they're getting various campaigns out very quickly. Here's how I can help you do that, streamline that process. It's really figuring out what these people's pain points are and why they don't want to participate in the procurement process, and making it as easy as possible for them. And that means in the early days, a lot of very boring admin work, a lot of sitting with people, like, this is how you fill in the form, it's going to be okay. But it means, that after that 6 months, things just hum along here. Our Jira tool, which Elegance helped us build for contract management, people just input it, it goes through the process, all our various due diligences are completed, the negotiations are all in there. It's so much easier for people to participate, and it's interesting to watch how much the questions dropped once people got comfortable with that. And now it's just a thing that procurement's part of the life cycle because I made it consumable for them.
So it's really also looking at the how they're able to get through that process too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And how should procurement professionals respond when suppliers present proposals with cost increases attributed to R&D, CPI, or other vague justifications, but fail to provide the transparent breakdowns or evidence?
I often go back to them and say, well, how do you want me to explain this to my executive team? You tell me what you want me to go and say to them to want to agree to this. You tell me what value I'm getting out of this. Because everyone's got CPI. You're not special. Your R&D, we're not consuming any of that. Or if you are, just be careful about languaging you're using around that. But put it back on them. How are you justifying this? Because this is an X percentage increase on us. We don't see that as any value we're actually getting for that increase. So how am I to explain that? How am I to how do I convince people to want to spend this money? Because right now, you're just putting numbers in front of me and it looks like a money grab. People are afraid to say that to suppliers. Don't be. One of my favorite to say when they put a CPI increase in front of me is, oh, what's my loyalty tax this year? Make them feel uncomfortable. People don't language like that. And you have to be a little bit aggressive in some of those things because it is a loyalty tax. It's no different than staying with a bank that hasn't dropped their mortgage rates.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying a loyalty tax. What am I getting for that loyalty?
Yeah.
Especially for established technologies where they're not doing any enhancements or changes, you've already it worked off whatever investment you put into building this originally. What am I getting now? What is the justification? And what might happen is you might not get any reduction in that increase, but I can almost guarantee you're going to get some free stuff that will help your teams out or help you use the tool better. Just politely and professionally make them feel a bit uncomfortable, put them on the spot.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense actually, because it's again back to that transparency piece. You could end up walking away from that supplier without having the opportunity to either gain more value from them as well, or actually get them to help you understand what those changes are.
And it's also it's not expensive and easy to switch to a supplier, right?
Mm.
And if you're getting this information very last minute, you're already back against a wall. In terms of you don't have time to transition somewhere else. You haven't had the timing. And that's one of the other big things I call out to people is if you are doing a big investment into a technology set and it's, let's say, a 3-year contract, I need you within the first 6 months of that 3 years to start planning for what happens at the end of that 3 years, because it is going to come up so quickly. You haven't thought about if you want to stay with them or do an upgrade or go somewhere else, like the transition time, the procurement time. Don't leave it till the last minute because you're going to make your life harder. And this is what suppliers rely on when they very late in the piece present to you these cost uplifts. They're relying on you being worried about the time, conscious that the service is going to get turned off. They're not going to turn your service off. If you're in active negotiation with them and they know you're going to sign, they're not going to turn your service off. So you can afford to push back and make them justify it. They're the ones that want you to pay it. Why? Why should I? Where is the benefit to me?
Yeah. We've faced a lot of that ourselves from the other side as well around just I guess everyone just gets so busy and just puts things on the back burner, and you're right, time flies by and it's all of a sudden upon us.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Any more questions from anyone? Just quickly scroll through, see if I've missed anything. Awesome. I think we might have got to the end there. And anything you wanted to add?
I think the biggest call out, I'm not sure what the mix of people is, if it's tech people or business people, whatever it is, procurement is your partner. Like it is the procurement you might have known at the start of your career who was very fill in this form, follow this process. That is not the procurement of 2025, certainly not the procurement I run. We are a partner. We want the best outcome for everyone, and we see things in a different way to you, but it's designed to make your life easier, even if it doesn't feel it in the moment. So I encourage you to engage with your procurement teams early and often to get the best possible outcome, because the effort you put in the beginning saves you 4 times the effort across the life of the contract.
Some very sound words there. I definitely made some learnings myself during this call. Thank you very much. And the key takeaways around just the mental shift of procurement, and I guess the bad taste that it used to leave in the mouths of people, that yes, it's actually procurement is your friend. Procurement will help you get what you want and what you need. And there's always multiple ways that you might be able to get that. But doing it transparently with all of the facts on the table is the best way to go.
100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Erin. It's been great to speak to you. And yeah, hopefully see you again soon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.